The leaders of the two front-running parties certainly know how important Lethbridge is to the overall election. They were both here on the first full day of the campaign. Jason Kenney then, of course, returned last weekend, and NDP leader Rachel Notley making another visit to Lethbridge Thursday evening. Notley held a rally with her supporters over at Shannon Phillips' Lethbridge West campaign office. Notley touched on jobs, the economy, and poverty in this province. And Global News asked Notley why social media and television ads have been much more focused on attacking the opposition rather than trying to trumpet the NDP's own policies.
In my view, it's not mudslinging, it's the facts. And it is not only unprecedented in Alberta, but I think it's actually unprecedented in the country that you have somebody seeking the office of Premier while the very path to being in the position of candidate for Premier is being investigated by the RCMP.
There is, of course, other Lethbridge news being made today, including a big road construction project.
Thousands of post-secondary students in Lethbridge have a decision to make this election season. If they live somewhere else in Alberta or are doing their schooling in Lethbridge, they can vote in either riding, and in races as close as Lethbridge West and Lethbridge East, it could make all the difference.
About a third of the university students are from the Calgary area. A lot of ridings in Calgary are close. So they have a choice as to where they want to make a difference.
Most students we spoke with are leaning towards voting in their home ridings instead of Lethbridge.
I feel like Calgary is a more permanent home base for me, so my decision would have more standing there.
It's definitely closer to home. Most of my things, my work, my parents' business is all down there, so I would definitely vote in Calgary.
That's where I was registered to vote, and just thought it'd be easier, and I didn't quite know how to vote for my riding in Lethbridge.
I'll probably go based on where I'm going to spend most of my time in the next few years, so probably here since I'm in university.
The University of Lethbridge says as of December 1st, there were about 5,000 students taking classes here at the Lethbridge campus, but were from a different part of the province. And across town here at Lethbridge College, there are about 2,100 students who could vote in a Lethbridge riding or their home riding. Hale says young voters generally sit left of centre, which could be a boost to the local NDP and Liberal campaigns. He adds that social media can also play a large part in drawing out the youth vote.
Certainly, it can reinforce existing attitudes. It can motivate people to turn out. However, if you overreach, it can backfire.
But which ridings students decide to cast a vote in won't be clear until after Election Day. Kyle Bennett
aren't under his control. He can't decide if a pipeline gets built, that's Ottawa. He can't decide if a carbon tax is scrapped, that's, again, Ottawa can impose its own. And he can't decide to change the equalization formula. He can have a referendum, but that doesn't mean anything's going to happen after that. And so that, to me, is quite a risk for Jason Kenney in 2-3 years when, like you said, there is no pipeline and nothing has changed. Yeah. What is he going to do?
Yeah. The other thing too is he's trapped by his own rhetoric. I mean, he has, as he's done with Trudeau, he's done the same with obviously probably more with Rachel Notley. Saying that she's in sort of if that kind of coastal green who doesn't want anything to do with pipelines. She's done nothing but fight for pipelines. She's an NDP government.
Since she became the government, to be fair, she did not prior to that.
Right, but that's all that counts.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I just mean like the reason why that may resonate with some Albertans is because they might remember prior to that she was not an advocate for pipelines.
She is
she has been very much so.
She's gone against the NDP government in British Columbia and the national one, and as far as cheerleading for these things. Kenny's rhetoric sort of overlooks all that completely. He's going to be dealing with the exact same problems that she is dealing with. That is to say, pipeline doesn't exist. The oil in that province is landlocked, and it remains at the price that it's at, and it has to be sold at a discount.
Do you think, though, that Albertans, Aaron, and my sense is, I don't know if they necessarily believe he's going to make the world of difference. I think there's just a sense of desperation that we're willing to give it a shot. Right? Like, I don't even think it's a hatred for Rachel Notley, nobody is talking about it, even in the same way you heard about Kathleen Wynne in the Ontario election, but it's just this sense of it's not working now, so let's give it a try. I don't know if per se people there are saying he is going to get this thing built for sure. Right. Just maybe he has a better shot.
Yeah, I don't know that there's much rational. I mean, the idea that even that Justin Trudeau hates
oil development, hates the oil sands. I mean, not he personally, but the federal government bought a pipeline.
And you know what they say when you say that? It was about the pipeline. Well, he was forced to. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's, yeah.
There's no, and so
you can't reason with it.
Right, and so the question of Jason Kenney and what he does, I mean, I think there will come a point when people will say, well, why didn't you deliver? But I would not underestimate his ability to blame everyone else but himself for that problem. It'll be BC's fault. It'll be the Prime Minister's fault. It would be interesting if Andrew Scheer was Prime Minister, who he would blame at that point.
That's a good.
It's this situation is how we got to this point on pipelines development is richly complicated. But politicians have been consistent in finding very, very simple answers to explain how we got here.
Okay, and on that point, we will take another commercial break. We'll be back.
Before the election.
Leaders are busy making pitches to the public, hoping to secure seats on Tuesday. Alicia Fieldberg reports.
Days before the election, NDP leader Rachel Notley spent Sunday morning with the Sikh community in Calgary. Her sights set on the competition.
Jason Kenney's plan to undo what we've done is actually going to create more instability, more uncertainty.
Like Saturday, making her pitch in a city where she hopes to make gains.
It looks as though Calgary is the major battleground as it has been throughout the campaign.
UCP leader Jason Kenney spent his weekend in central Alberta, also attending a Vaisakhi festival Sunday, leaving the Edmonton event without taking questions from the media. In a Calgary brewery, David Kahn promised more flexible rules governing Alberta gaming liquor and cannabis.
So we're focused on jobs and the economy, but I think this is an important part of it, and I'm feeling really confident.
Stephen Mandel continued his campaign in the capital, the city he's called home for decades.
Every time we go to their doors, that's no longer an issue of pipelines and jobs to begin with. Now it's all about the nastiness of this campaign.
Many feel the tension of this election, especially between the frontrunners.
And in a tight race, this is the sort of thing that we tend to see. It tells you that it is competitive, it tells you that it is tough, that it's close.
While the NDP has narrowed the gap, the UCP leads the polls. Albertans will decide who wins on Tuesday. Alicia Fieldberg, CTV News, Calgary.
And if advanced polls are any indication, it appears that voters are engaged.
Alberta saw a record number of people cast a ballot, but we won't know how more than 8% of eligible voters voted until well after election night. In 5 days of advanced voting, about 696,000 ballots were cast. In 2015, that number was 235,000 votes. Elections Alberta isn't sure why the numbers are up, but point out this time there were more voting locations and voters could cast their ballot at any location. But Elections Alberta won't be counting those ballots until Wednesday.
It's going to take a few days. I'm going to target getting these done by Saturday, but I won't know until we get going how long it's going to take.
There were a few problems at polling stations. Elections Alberta says most of that is human error and better training programs should fix those.
About the TAPS legislation.
At a stop at the Dashmesh Cultural Centre in Calgary on Sunday, Rachel Notley accused Kenney of alienating people who have worked to bring places like BC on side with pipeline construction.
I think what Mr. Kenney is doing is he's declaring a war in order to further, sort of national political objectives. But Alberta may well be the casualty in that.
In Calgary, Liberal leader David Kahn said his party would allow booze at festivals and public parks and end what he calls the AGLC cannabis distribution monopoly. As for Kenney's comments on BC, Kahn says they're counterproductive.
It would be found to be unconstitutional in 15 seconds, and I'm deeply disappointed that Mr. Kenney continues to mislead Albertans with his puppet theater.
Political analysts say many voters are looking at which party leaders are most likely to get pipelines built.
There's no question there's room for toughness, but is some kind of combination of toughness and consensus building what people see as more likely to be successful. And I think it's one of the questions people are going to be looking at very carefully.
Kenney has been critical of BC's court challenges against the Trans Mountain Pipeline extension. He was at a Vaisakhi celebration in Edmonton on Sunday, but didn't speak with members of the media. Carolyn Curry de Castillo, Global News.
Alberta Party leader Stephen Mandel is crying foul after an allegation of a robocall impersonating him and saying he supports Jason Kenney. Edmonton man Bob Wispinski claims the voice said it was Stephen Mandel of the Alberta Party. and that Mandel supported Jason Kenney in the UCP. He found the call suspicious, called his friend who is a candidate for the Alberta Party, and that friend then flagged the issue to Stephen Mandel.
And it goes on for about a minute and a half, and then it ends saying, "I'm Stephen Mandel, and I support Jason Kenney of the UCP party."
We want to be very clear. Very clear. We don't know the source of this. We don't know who it came from. We just think it's an all-time low.
There is a legitimate robocall campaign in Alberta right now. It comes from Stephen Harper, who supports Jason Kenney. Ms. Pinsky insists the name he heard was Stephen Mandel. Mandel says he's taking the issue to the election commissioner and the RCMP. Well, in the 2015 provincial election, the NDP won every seat in Edmonton, and this year the UCP is hoping to gain headway in the capital region, including with one high-profile candidate. The only problem is he doesn't live in the riding he's running in. Ganoler has more from Edmonton Meadows.
He is a business turnaround expert, and that's what we need in the government.
No stranger to competition, former Eskimos boss Len Rhodes says Tuesday's election is his Grey Cup.
I want to make a difference, a positive difference.
Jason Kenney parachuted Rhodes into the riding in February in the middle of a nomination race. Rhodes also lives more than a half hour away. Political scientist Dwayne Bratt says that could be a fumble in the UCP's game plan.
I think the chance is still there, but it would have been a lot easier if they had not switched candidates.
The two other frontrunners for the MLA position have both lived in the riding for more than 2 decades, and the three teams have all set up shop within steps of each other. The UCP, NDP, and Alberta Party all in the same strip mall. Dual says knowing the community is a big part of this competition.
I have dealt the same problems that my community. I see the issues. We are having the opportunities even, working in this community.
A sentiment echoed by Alberta Party candidate Amrit Mataru. His family owns several small businesses in the area, and he's lived here his entire life. He says there's a desperate need for a high school here.
I personally went to McNally High School, so I know the struggles of getting up in the morning and then taking a 45-minute to an hour bus ride in -30 to get to school.
Rhodes continues to run plays, focusing on what he sees as important for the community.
The unemployment rate is far too high. When I'm knocking at the doors, unsolicited, they're telling me their number one concern is jobs, jobs, jobs.
He says he's in it to win it, and if he gets that touchdown come April 16th...
Anyone who knows me knows that I'm 100% engaged in anything I decide to do. I don't do anything from a part-time standpoint.
Quinn Oler, Global News.
Well, the provincial election is Tuesday, but a record number of people have already cast their ballots in the early polls. 3 times turnout for advanced voting compared to the last provincial election. Sarah Krause has that story.
Alberta is home to 2.6 million eligible voters, and this provincial election is bringing them out to the polls in droves.
I just think it's really important that if we do want things to change or stay the same, that people do understand that we need to get out and vote.
Early voting was offered for 5 days, with advanced polls closing Saturday night. Numbers are already in, and they're record-breaking. Nearly 700,000 Albertans cast a ballot. That's almost 27% of eligible voters.
We're thrilled with the turnout of the advanced polls this election. We anticipated there would be more because there was an additional day of advanced polling being added, and because you could vote anywhere. There's the convenience of that anywhere in the province. We've got 243 locations.
For the first time, Albertans were invited to vote at any polling station, including some in unique places, like malls, the airport, and even IKEA.
I think it makes it kind of fun in a way. So, go shopping after voting.
We come to IKEA quite a bit, so this was just very convenient for us.
The convenience factor appears to be paying off. For comparison, in Alberta's last provincial election, just 235,000 people voted in advance polls.
We're very happy and excited about the turnout. We hope that translates on election day to an increased turnout as well, and more people participating in the electoral process is a good thing.
Sarah Krause, Global News.
We'll know who will be taking the reins of this province, and it's an all-out push right now for all party leaders to wrangle any last-minute support before Tuesday. NDP leader Rachel Notley spent part of her Sunday at the Polish Community Center, surrounded by a sea of orange signs being hoisted up in the air as chants broke out. She spoke about her promises to nurses and young men and women and gave it one big final push.
Bring this one home. We have people to fight for, jobs to create, a pipeline to build, an economy to diversify, schools and hospitals to build, and an election to win.
And a strange phone call has sparked the Alberta Party leader to call on the RCMP and the Elections Integrity Commissioner to take immediate action. The CBC's Emily Rendell-Watson has those details.
Stephen Mandel claims on Saturday night a man who lives in Ardrossan, Alberta, got a robocall impersonating him. The man says the voice sounded like Mandel and encouraged him to vote for the UCP in an attempt to stop the NDP. Bob Wispinski says he tried to call the number back and a man answered who didn't know anything about this.
I'm not impressed. I don't know how to word it without cussing, so I'm not going to. But it's just ticks me off that that's what's got to be resorted to. And I feel that anybody who isn't of common sense, which can be very vague, might believe it.
Mandel says the call was fake and does not know how many other people may have received the same one. He calls this one of the nastiest campaigns in the history of Alberta, and he's almost ashamed to be a part of it.
We go to the doors, and that's the number one conversation we're hearing from people. Why is it like this?
The United Conservative Party says it doesn't know anything about the call. The party says it appears in line with the narrative the NDP is pushing, that they're concerned about the Alberta Party taking left-of-center votes. But the NDP also denied any involvement with the call and said in a statement, quote, "It doesn't surprise us that the UCP would level such false allegations against us given the number of RCMP investigations they're currently dealing with," unquote. Emily Rendell-Watson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Now, other Albertans say they've received robocalls with the caller claiming to be Stephen Harper, phoning on behalf of the UCP. The UCP's media handler says there's confusion between Mandel and Harper calls, and they've confirmed that at least one of the people claiming to have received a robocall from Mandel endorsing Kenny had actually received the call they had put out from Stephen Harper. Now, UCP leader Jason Kenney joined the Sikh community in the Edmonton Meadows riding today. His appearance at the Vaisakhi celebration was very brief, with no comment. The celebration, which originated as a harvest festival in India's Punjab region hundreds of years ago, is of special significance to Sikh Canadians. Now, also on the campaign trail today, Alberta Liberal leader David Kahn was at a Calgary microbrewery announcing his party's plan to reform Alberta gaming, liquor, and cannabis. Kahn says his party would put an end to the cannabis distribution monopoly. He says the current system has made the supply shortage worse, costing at least 1,800 jobs. He says he'd allow retailers to find their own distributors and suppliers.
We will allow liquor at festivals. We will allow liquor at picnics and parks. We will make it easier to acquire a liquor license for special events. We will reduce restrictions on activities at events where liquor is served. AGLC will no longer be allowed to deny liquor licenses if it deems the entertainment bizarre.
2 days, Albertans will decide the direction they want the future of this province to go. By all accounts, this campaign has been tense, deeply divisive, and even having some ugly moments. The back and forth bickering will continue until the bitter end. And as Carolyn Curry de Castillo reports, now another province is being dragged into the rhetoric.
There's an election winding down in Alberta, but it was people in BC who were the target of UCP leader Jason Kenney's wrath. At a campaign rally Friday night, Kenney renewed his pledge to turn off the taps of gasoline within an hour of being sworn in as premier.
If they continue to obstruct our energy and violate the economic union of the Constitution in doing so, that we will be prepared to use the turn off the taps legislation.
At a stop at the Dashmesh Cultural Center in Calgary on Sunday, Rachel Notley accused Kenney of alienating people who have worked to bring places like BC on side with pipeline construction.
I think what Mr. Kenney is doing is he's declaring a war in order to further, sort of national political objectives. But Alberta may well be the casualty in that.